Hey guys, it's Danny. Here to talk about Chapter 7 in the relationship. The first theory that I wanted to talk about was the communication privacy management theory, which talks about how you get to know someone by penetrating their sphere. And I think this is entirely true. You really can't get to know someone until you penetrate that bubble that they're in. And many people don't allow you to penetrate that sphere. Um, so if someone does let you in, it means a lot. It means they trust you. And even from personal experience, I know that letting people in is very hard. Um, but that's because of past relationships and things that I've been through when you let somebody in and it backfires in your face. So I think having that wall and putting that sphere up is good, but also allowing people to penetrate that is good as well. Um, Next, I wanted to talk about the affection exchange theory. And it says that affection is, a basic human need, which is entirely true. It feels good when someone gives you affection or you can give affection out. But I think there's different ways to express that affection. But that's different for everybody. What I think is okay to do might be different for someone else. I'm not a big public display of affection PDA person, but somebody else might be. But keeping that in mind, that I don't like it, but someone else might, you also have to think about how it affects the people around you. So when I see someone and when I see a couple and they're major PDA, I feel uncomfortable. But they're not going to think about that because in their world it's okay. But in my world it's completely different. And I would never go out there and do that in front of strangers and people that I don't feel comfortable with or feel comfortable letting in to that part of my relationship. And that goes back to the communication privacy management theory of letting people in. And even though that's a bigger picture of letting people in to your relationship, it's still the same concept. It's just strangers who you're essentially letting in by showing these public displays of affection. And then it also talks about how absence of affection hurts connection and health. And this also goes back to what I said earlier about how past relationships often past relationships can allow you to let people in or not let people in. And that's the same with affection. If you've come from a bad relationship, you're not going to let that affection in right away. Someone's got to work to prove to you that it's okay to let your guard down. Another theory that I enjoyed reading about was the family communication patterns theory. It made me kind of dissect my family relationships and how our communication works. So it talks about how people respond to different relationships differently depending on past relationships. This is what I was saying before. But then it also goes into different family communication styles. So there's the consensual family where there's a specific decision maker, and it's very uniform, like, okay, this is your job, this is what you do, and then over here, this is your job, this is what you do. But it also says in this, there's not much arguing because everyone has their set duties and what they're supposed to do and what they're not allowed to do. And to a point, this used to be how my family was. Like when I was younger, it was okay, like mom does this, dad does this, and this is what's expected of me. But I've noticed as I've gotten older, we've kind of gotten away from that. And that's probably because I'm older and more mature. So more duties and responsibilities can fall on me. So that puts us more into the pluralistic family, which gives equal decision making. separate rooms to do work. That's always been my parents. My dad has an office and my mom has an office, and that's their area to do their work. It doesn't cross. But it also says in a pluralistic family, there's more arguing, which is not my family. So my family, I would say, crosses between a consensual family and a pluralistic family, having equal decision making from the pluralistic family in separate rooms to do work. But then the consensual family part is there's not much arguing. People do have their specific tasks that they do, but it's not oh, that's my job, you can't do that at all. The chapter also talked about dialogue as building a culture of peace, and talked about the narrow ridge, and I think this was one of the most real things I've read. It talked about how you should honor your thoughts and opinions, but also the person you're speaking to. But more times than not, people don't really honor your opinions if it's different from theirs. And I don't think that's right. Like, they might sit there and say they agree, but you know if they agree or not. If they keep coming back with you with the same responses, they're either not really listening to what you're saying and developing their thoughts before you've even finished talking, or they just don't want to hear it and they're just going to nod their head and say yes until you give up, just so they think you think that they get it. So I don't think it's right to have someone not honor your thoughts and opinions if they're different from yours. They're your thoughts and opinions, and it shouldn't matter what you think about something. It shouldn't change how they think or feel about you just because your thoughts are different. An example is, I work with this guy and he's very, okay, this is how you have to do it. This is how you have to think. There's only one way to do it, which isn't right. There's multiple ways to do many things, and what might be right for you might not be right for me, and I might have my own way of doing it. And some people just don't understand that, and it can be very close-minded, but that's just how people are. And there's not really much you can do about it except accept it and kind of just ignore it. But that's my food for thought on chapter 7. I did enjoy it. I thought it had a lot of good theories to touch on, and these were just a couple that I found interesting, and I'm looking forward to hearing everyone else's thoughts and opinions in their blogs and see what discussions we come up with in class tomorrow. Have a good weekend.